Okay, in these problems, we're going to have to take a look at if we have either complementary or supplementary angles. We're going to see the information that we have, and then we need to set up an equation and solve that equation in order to find what the variable equals, and then use that variable to answer the question, what's the measure of the missing angle? Okay, so let me just scroll up here. You can notice the directions say use the image below to find the requested values. And these problems, you're going to have two different parts to the answer. One of them is an angle measure, and one of them is the value for the variable. There are a couple different ways you can approach these problems. I'm going to use the idea here of, hey, we have complementary angles. Let me grab my pen tool. I notice we have complementary since you have a right angle here, so this big angle has to be 90 degrees. And we know that this angle here is 42 degrees. So to find this angle, you just take 90 minus the 42, and I get 48 degrees. So that angle is 48 degrees. And down here in my box, it says, what's the measurement angle RMC? And RMC just so happens to be R to M to C, that right there. So that's how you'd find that first answer. That'd be 48. Now, how do you find, let's just make sure that's correct. Oh, let me tap it here with my cursor. Okay, so I figured out how to tap it with this pen tool without making a mark. And notice it marked it green, so we got that correct. And when I move it up, we need to find the value of D. D is the variable, and I know that this measure here is 8D, which has to equal to 48, so I set up an equation, 8D equals 48, and of course divide by 8 on both sides, so the missing variable, the missing number for the variable is 8. Wait a second, it's 6. So D equals 6. So scroll up here. I did it again. I got to grab my right tool here. I scroll up and I tap in 6 and I check that. Okay. Let me erase and do a second example. Okay, in this problem, we have supplementary angles because the two angles that are shown here, of course, would add up to be 180. This angle here, and this angle here. And similar to the last problem, we need to find the measure of one of the angles and find the value of the variable. So you have one method. You could use 180 minus 116 and find the missing angle. So let's do that. So I know that this angle is already 116, so to find the other angle, so this is 116, this angle here has to be 180 minus 116, which ends up being, what, 64. Again, just keep a handy dandy calculator around and check your work. If you do it mentally, that's great, but still check it in the calculator. So 64 degrees, tap it in here. 64, hit the green check, got that right, slide it up. I want to find the value of D. So to get that, I want to set up an equation, and I'm going to use the D minus 45 has to be equal to the 64 degrees that angle equals. So you add 45 to both sides, and you end up with D equals 109. So that's not the angle measure, that's just the variable value. And that would go in here. Now, if I'm wrong, it's going to give me a little red dot. And if I get a little red dot, I got to go back and investigate what's happened. Okay, now there is a second way of doing this. So let me show you that real quick. Just a reminder, let me slide it down a little bit. We could have taken the original angles, the 116 and the D minus 45, and added those together When you add those two big angles together, you get even a bigger angle, which is 180. And you combine like terms, 116 and a negative 45. 116 minus 45, 71. So I get D plus a positive 71 equals 180. And I would subtract 71 on both sides. And 180 minus 71 is 109, which is the same answer I got here. They just take the 109, and you would take that 109 and substitute in here. And guess what 109 minus 45 would be? You got it, it's 64, which of course is that answer there. So there was two different ways you could have approached it. The first way or the second way. So do your best on these. Hope that makes sense. And let me see my smiles here, and the erase here. And let me see my smiles up here so I can get that. Will it happen? No smiles, but I got it right. I'm on to my next set of problems.